One of the reasons I think you can't trust mainstream media is because it's all consolidated at the top. And all these billionaires that own these different media companies, there's like 8 of them that own and control basically everything you see on CNN, Fox, MSNBC, the mainstream media, and read. Pick up a USA Today. You want a joke? You want a joke of a newspaper? Pick up the USA Today. Run by Gannett. Massive. Think about the amount of money that's consolidated at the top. Jeff Bezos pays nothing in taxes. The owner of Amazon, richest man in the world, of course, bought the Washington Post a few years ago. And among other things, we now know, although they won't talk about it, and the Washington Post won't really even report on it, but that Amazon has a contract, a $5 billion contract with the CIA. So the CIA gets to run their pipeline through Amazon's web services and Amazon Cloud. The CIA has a contract with Amazon for their web backend and infrastructure. Now we learned this morning that Jeff Bezos is in talks and would like to buy CNN. Well, we already couldn't trust. If you think you're now going to be able to trust, I trust CNN to begin with. Now you're going to be able to trust CNN. All of these, these billionaires that want to control the media narrative in this country and the censorship that unfolds as a result of this. I mean, just look at rich boy Jack Dorsey, founder of Twitter, who was on Capitol Hill yesterday. Actually, wasn't on Capitol Hill. I think he was like in some bunker somewhere, like Ted Kaczynski up in Montana, being grilled by the Senate Banking Committee yesterday. And whoa, was this a lot of fun to watch. One thing was interesting, too, about this yesterday is that Jack Dorsey, I think Congress placed a little too much emphasis on Twitter. Like, a lot of people don't use Twitter. It's not as popular as Facebook and Google. And yet there was an odd amount of time paid towards Twitter yesterday. But I think maybe rightly so, because of the really egregious censorship that they did a few days ago of the Hunter Biden story in the New York Post. Like, what gives you the right to censor speech? These major platforms, which people rely on to read the news, to learn about what's going on in the world. Twitter has been held up over the years as a beacon of hope among journalists because we could actually get information out of authoritarian countries during uprisings. Think about the revolutions in Arab Spring. Thank you. It's been a little while since the Arab Spring, but Twitter was able to get information out of it because all people needed was a cell phone and a cell connection. They were able to get information out, vital information about what was happening. These uprisings has the power to overthrow governments. This communications channel. When all of this stuff is consolidated at the top, and Jack Dorsey gets to sit back in his office, in his Silicon Valley office, and pick and choose or have a policy that picks and chooses who wins and who loses, that we're going to censor conservative voices. We're going to squash this Hunter Biden story. Great, let journalists discuss. Let journalists get to the bottom of this. But you're going to pick and choose what pieces of news get on your platform. The same thing is true and happening on Facebook. Picking and choosing winners. What stories get elevated? Google the same thing. Go try to look for a negative story on Wikipedia, which is absolute garbage, Wikipedia. Go try to look for a negative story about Wikipedia, and you won't find it till like page 2 of Google search results, 2 or 3, and even then it's buried. No one goes to page 2 of Google. Try to find that kind of stuff, and you can't, because these big companies push that stuff down, suppress it, quiet voices. We've seen it on YouTube. We've seen it other places. So Jack Dorsey got the brunt of Senator Ted Cruz's attack yesterday. Watch Senator Ted Cruz lay into him And I just couldn't stand like Jack Dorsey's smugness about all. He's sitting there with this like Ted Kaczynski beard. Watch this. Too smart for you.
About the behavior of both of their companies. I would note that Facebook is at the minimum at least trying to make some efforts in the direction of defending free speech. I appreciate their doing so. Google, I agree with the concerns that Senator Klobuchar raised. I think Google has more power than any company on the face of the planet. And the antitrust concerns are real. The impact of Google is profound. And I expect we will have continued and ongoing discussions about Google's abuse of that power and its willingness to manipulate search outcomes to influence and change election results. But today, I want to focus my questioning on Mr. Dorsey and on Twitter. Because of the three players before us, I think Twitter's conduct has by far been the most egregious. Mr. Dorsey, does Twitter have the ability to influence elections?
No.
You don't believe Twitter has any ability to influence elections?
No, we are one part of a broad spectrum of communication channels that people have.
So you're testifying to this committee right now that Twitter, when it silences people, when it censors people, when it blocks political speech, that has no impact on elections?
People have choice of other communication channels with which.
Not if they don't hear information. If you don't think you have the power to influence elections, why do you block anything?
Well, we have policies that are focused on making sure that more voices on the platform are possible. We see a lot of abuse and harassment, which ends up silencing people and having them leave from the platform.
All right, Mr. Dorsey, I find your opening questions, your opening answers absurd on their face. Let's talk about the last 2 weeks in particular. As you know, I have long been concerned about Twitter's pattern of censoring and silencing individual Americans with whom Twitter disagrees. But 2 weeks ago, Twitter, and to a lesser extent Facebook, crossed a threshold that is fundamental in our country. 2 weeks ago, Twitter made the unilateral decision to censor the New York Post in a series of 2 blockbuster articles, both alleging evidence of corruption against Joe Biden, the first concerning Ukraine, the second concerning communist China. And Twitter made the decision, number one, to prevent users, any user, from sharing those stories. And number two, you went even further and blocked the New York Post from sharing on Twitter its own reporting. Why did Twitter make the decision to censor the New York Post?
We had a hack materials policy that we.
When was that policy adopted?
In 2018, I believe.
In 2018, go ahead. What was the policy?
So the policy is around limiting the spread of materials that are hacked. We didn't want Twitter to be a distributor for hack materials. We found that the New York Post, because it showed the direct materials, screenshots of the direct materials, and it was unclear how those were attained, that it fell under this policy. Now,
so in your view, if it's unclear the source of a document, and in this instance, the New York Post documented what it said the source was, which it said it was a laptop owned by Hunter Biden that had been turned into a repair store. So they weren't hiding what they claimed to be the source. Is it your position that Twitter, when you can't tell the source, blocks press stories?
No, not at all. Our team made a fast decision. The enforcement action, however, of blocking URLs, both in tweets and in DM, in direct messages, we believe was incorrect. And we changed it.
Today, right now, the New York.
Still, to this day, it's blocked. So we acted quickly and unblocked it. That's the CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, who literally looks like he just came out of a cave after a 4-month sojourn. He's probably going to go back there soon. But we don't look like that. Did you see him? You want me to look like this?
His right.
I know it's his right.
Lockdown.
Yeah, I'm sure he's suffering in his lockdown. Just he's like Kim Kardashian, probably went to her private island for a little barbecue. But, him saying we can just literally, we made a decision. We looked at it. We thought, well, we don't know. We can't really verify where this came from. The dissemination of information. What about WikiLeaks? What about when information, and this is the reason that this is a joke, is because there's been plenty of situations where this information could have been out there in the public. Like Republicans missed opportunities yesterday to make for a case like why we need to have this change in the first place. Everyone knows that these guys lean left. They have they have plenty of opportunities when there's material that is favorable to Democrats that they let live on their platform. But when it's against Joe Biden, when it's against Democratic candidates, we deplatform them, we take them out of here, we throw them off. Some senators did push back on this, saying that censors in good faith without regard to political ideology. Mississippi Senator Roger Wicker pointed out that Twitter took 2 months to add a warning label to Chinese propaganda, suggesting that the U.S. military brought the coronavirus to China. That was okay for them to let that go on their platform for 2 months. So again, my point is, you're going to censor. What are you going to censor? You're going to just pick and choose? But I think this is clearly getting out of hand. You're seeing people's Twitter accounts being shut down. You're having people that are speaking out against people on the far left, by the way, progressives who are speaking out against Biden, having their Twitter accounts taken down. Let me know your thoughts on this. What did you think of this testimony yesterday? I thought it was, I thought the smugness of Dorsey really stood out to me. And I think they spent an inordinate amount of time going after Twitter. When again, I think we need to look more closely at Google, Facebook. The thing is, though, it's not going to happen because when you have billions of dollars pouring in from these companies supporting these left-leaning candidates, it's going to be hard to affect change there. You're only going to be able to get out information. Like I've had certain YouTube videos that have been hurt and blocked here because I've spoken out against Biden, and I've told you things here on this show that are true. And I've had ad suitability issues and other things that have popped up as a result of it. So thank you for supporting independent journalism. That's what the show is all about. We're going to continue to do these types of stories because I think they're important. No one's talking about them. And when you're going to have this consolidation, Jeff Bezos owning CNN, people being deplatformed because they're sharing information that might rub you the wrong way, we're going to silence those voices. I mean, this is the type of stuff that growing up we would talk about North Korea. We would talk about China. Like, can you believe they'll block social media sites in China? Yeah, it's happening here. Disgusting. Let me know your thoughts on this. And thank you for subscribing to the channel. You can subscribe to our morning newsletter, by the way. morninginvest.com is the newsletter. It's totally free, delivered to your inbox first thing in the morning. So go there and subscribe. Thank you for being a great part of our community.